Richard Hale pressed his palms against the cool marble of his bathroom counter, studying the stranger in the mirror. 67 years had etched deep lines around his eyes, the kind earned from squinting at blueprints under harsh sun and negotiating contracts that could make or break careers. His reflection showed a man who'd clawed his way up from framing houses in Daly City to building half of San Francisco's skyline. Tonight should have been simple. His son Michael was bringing Vanessa Torres to dinner, the woman he planned to propose to next month. Richard had done his homework. Stanford grad, regular at the SFMO MoMA galas, Instagram full of soup kitchen volunteering. On paper, she was flawless. But something gnawed at him. Maybe it was the way she'd cut off a waiter mid-sentence at Michael's birthday dinner. Maybe it was how her smile never quite reached her eyes in photos. His late wife used to say, "Rich, you can't blueprint people like buildings." She was right, but he'd learned another truth in 40 years of construction. You don't trust the architect's renderings. You inspect the foundation yourself. Richard pulled a faded navy work shirt from the back of his closet, left over from his days running job sites. The plan was reckless, probably crazy. But tomorrow morning, Richard Hale, CEO of Hale & Co., would disappear. In his place would be just another middle-aged delivery guy on a scooter, invisible to people like Vanessa. "The way someone treats the person who can't do anything for them," he muttered, buttoning the shirt. "That's who they really are." His phone buzzed, Michael confirming dinner reservations at Quince. He typed back a thumbs up, then called an old friend who ran a family deli in Oakland. By midnight, he had a borrowed scooter, a route list, and one address circled in red: Vanessa's Rincon Hill condo. If his gut was wrong, he'd endure one humbling day and welcome her into the family. But if he was right, Michael needed to know before he put a ring on the wrong woman's finger. Some foundations couldn't be fixed after construction was complete. The scooter engine whined as Richard merged onto the Bay Bridge, dawn painting the water steel gray. His knees already ached from the unfamiliar crouch, and the morning fog bit through his thin jacket. Maria Delgado had handed him the insulated delivery bag at 5:30, without asking questions. Good woman. She'd known his father back when they both worked the Embarcadero docks. First stop, Rincon Hill, Unit 2847. Vanessa Torres. Richard had memorized the address weeks ago when Michael first mentioned where she lived. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of overpriced luxury box that blocked someone's view for profit. He turned down the contract to build it. The doorman barely glanced at him. That was the thing about wearing a uniform. You became furniture. Richard rode the elevator to 28, heart thudding harder than it should. The door to 2847 had a decorative wreath that screamed Pinterest perfect. He knocked 3 times, rustling inside. Then Vanessa's voice, honey sweet. "Coming, babe." She was on FaceTime. Michael's laugh crackled through the speaker. The door swung open. She looked straight through him, not at him, through him, like he was plexiglass. Her attention stayed glued to her phone screen. "Just leave it on the counter," she said, stepping aside without breaking her smile for Michael. Richard entered, setting the bag down carefully. The apartment was pristine, staged like a showroom. Vanessa giggled into her phone, twirling her hair. "You're so sweet. Yes, I'm eating super healthy. Just got breakfast delivered." The moment she hung up, her face shifted. The warmth drained like someone had flipped a switch. She glanced at Richard, finally acknowledging his existence. "You're still here?" "The receipt, ma'am. Need you to..." God, why do you people always need signatures? She scrawled something illegible, then tossed a crumpled $5 bill on the floor between them. Not handed it, tossed it. "That's your tip. You're welcome." Richard stared at the bill. 42 years ago, a foreman had thrown his first paycheck at his feet like that. He'd sworn then that if he ever made it, he'd never let anyone feel that small. "Thank you, ma'am." He bent down slowly, his back protesting, and pocketed the money. As he turned to leave, Vanessa was already back on her phone. "Ugh, I hate morning deliveries. They always expect you to, have a conversation. I'm not paying for therapy." Her friend's laugh echoed from the speaker as the door clicked shut behind him. Richard stood in the hallway, breathing slowly. One delivery down. He checked the route sheet, 4 more stops before he'd circle back here for her lunch order. By tonight, he'd know everything he needed to know. And Michael would know it too. By noon, Richard's shirt clung to his back with sweat. The scooter's seat felt like concrete, and his right wrist throbbed from gripping the throttle. But he'd made 3 more deliveries to Vanessa's building. Different units, different people. The pattern was emerging. He was waiting in the lobby, checking his phone, when a hand landed on his shoulder. Richard turned to find a black man in his 50s, wearing a security uniform, name tag reading Tom Reynolds. "You delivered a 2847 this morning?" Tom's voice was low, almost conspiratorial. Richard hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, why?" Tom glanced toward the elevators, then back. "You're the 4th guy this week who's come down looking like someone kicked his dog. That unit?" He shook his head. "She's got a reputation. Filed 3 complaints last month alone. Apparently delivery people are too slow, too loud, too whatever. Management's tired of hearing about it." "She seemed fine to me," Richard lied reflexively, testing. Tom snorted. "Right. Look, man, I've worked buildings for 23 years. You know how you can tell the real wealthy from the trust fund types? Real money doesn't need to prove anything. That girl up there? She treats staff like we're props in our Instagram story. Seen her reduce a Lale to tears because he parked her Mercedes crooked." Before Richard could respond, the elevator dinged. A woman in her 40s stepped out, tailored blazer, carrying a leather briefcase. She paused, studying Richard with sharp eyes. "Excuse me, you just delivered to the 28th floor?" Richard nodded slowly. The woman extended her hand. "Angela Price. I'm an attorney. Live in 2851. I couldn't help overhearing what Tom said." She lowered her voice. "I've been documenting issues with that unit for 6 months. The building CCTV has everything on file. How she speaks to staff, how she throws things when no one important is watching. If you ever need evidence of harassment, it exists." Richard's pulse quickened. "Why are you telling me this?" Angela's expression softened. "Because nobody deserves to be treated like they're disposable. And because I watched her scream at a 19-year-old grocery delivery kid last week until he was shaking. When I asked if he was okay, you know what he said? 'It's fine, ma'am. I'm used to it.'" She paused. "Nobody should be used to that." Tom nodded. "Amen. Look, brother, you seem like good people. Just watch yourself around her. Women like that, they've got 2 faces. And you've only seen the one she uses on people she thinks don't matter." Richard thanked them both, his mind racing. This wasn't just his gut anymore. This was a pattern, documented, witnessed. Vanessa Torres wasn't having a bad day. This was who she was when she thought nobody was keeping score. His phone buzzed. Another order for Unit 2847. Dinner delivery, 6:30. Richard checked his watch. He had 6 hours to prepare for the real performance. The one at Quince, where Vanessa would finally realize someone had been keeping score all along. Richard arrived at Quince 20 minutes early, his charcoal Tom Ford suit replacing the delivery uniform. The maitre d' recognized him immediately. He donated to the restaurant scholarship fund for culinary students. "Mr. Hale, your party's table is ready. Shall I seat you?" "I'll wait for my son." Richard positioned himself where he could watch the entrance. His hands were steady now. The day's humiliation crystallized into cold certainty. Michael arrived first, nervous energy radiating off him. He'd worn the tie his mother bought him before she passed, pale blue silk, Richard's chest tightened. His boy deserved better than this. Then Vanessa swept in, a vision in black Valentino, hair swept up in an elegant twist. She'd transformed completely from the woman who'd sneered at him 6 hours ago. She spotted Michael, and her face lit up with practiced warmth. "Richard!" She embraced him. Cheek kiss, perfect pressure. "I'm so excited for tonight. Michael's told me so much about you." They sat. Vanessa ordered wine with knowledgeable ease, complimented the sommelier by name, laughed at Richard's small talk about the weather. She was flawless. If he hadn't spent the day watching her real face, he'd have believed every word. The appetizers arrived. Richard waited until Vanessa finished her story about volunteering at a food bank. Ironic, given how she'd treated the person who delivered her food that morning. "Vanessa," Richard said, voice casual, "what do you think separates good people from great ones?" She didn't miss a beat. "Character. How you treat others when there's nothing to gain." She reached for Michael's hand. "That's why I fell for your son. He sees people, really sees them." Richard nodded slowly. From his jacket pocket, he withdrew a crumpled $5 bill and placed it on the white tablecloth. Vanessa's eyes flicked to it, then away. No recognition yet. "Funny you mention that," Richard continued. "I spent today delivering food. Interesting work. You meet all kinds of people." I smoothed the bill flat. "One customer threw this at my feet, didn't hand it to me, threw it, like I was a dog performing a trick." Vanessa's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Michael frowned, confused. Richard removed his reading glasses, the ones he'd worn all day, set them beside the bill. "Unit 2847, Rincon Hill. You remember the guy who delivered your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner at 6:30? The blood drained from Vanessa's face. Her mouth opened, closed. Michael's head swung between them, understanding dawning like a sunrise he didn't want to see. "Dad?" His voice cracked. "What are you—" "I wanted to know who she really was," Richard said quietly, eyes locked on Vanessa. "Not the version she performs for people who matter. The real her, the one who tells her friends she's not paying for therapy when delivery people try to be human. The one who made a 19-year-old kid shake, the one security guards warn each other about." Vanessa's carefully constructed composure shattered. I didn't know." Her hand reached for Michael, who pulled away instinctively. "No," Richard said, and his voice carried the weight of 40 years building things meant to last. "You didn't know, and that's exactly the problem."
Vanessa tried. God, she tried everything. Tears came first, streaming mascara down her cheeks as she begged Michael to understand. "I was stressed. I didn't mean it. Everyone has bad days." Then came anger, directed at Richard. "You set me up. You invaded my privacy." The other diners were staring now, but she was past caring. Finally, desperately, she dropped to her knees beside the table, gripping Michael's arm. "Please, I love you. I'll change. I promise I'll change." Richard watched his son's face, the boy he'd raised to frame houses in summer heat, who'd learned to read blueprints before he could drive. Michael's jaw worked, eyes wet, but when he spoke, his voice was steady. "Get up, Vanessa. Not cruel, just final. My mom used to say you can't build a marriage on a cracked foundation. Dad just showed me yours has been fractured from the start." He gently removed her hand. "We're done." She left in a blur of black fabric and broken dignity. The maitre d' discreetly ensured she made it to a cab. Richard and Michael sat in silence for a long moment, the restaurant's soft jazz filling the space between them. "You could have just told me what you suspected," Michael finally said. "Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was being overprotective? Some things, son, you need to see with your own eyes." Michael nodded slowly, then surprised Richard by laughing, brittle but real. "You spent a whole day on a scooter. At 67, your back must be killing you." "Worth every minute," Richard signaled for the check. "Come on, let's get out of here. I know a dive bar in the Mission that serves the best carnitas in the city. My mother and I used to go there when we were broke." 3 months later, Richard stood in the community center in the Tenderloin, watching Maria Delgado's grandson accept the first Hale & Co. Service Worker Scholarship, full ride to community college, renewable for 4 years. Tom Reynolds was there, Angela Price too, along with dozens of delivery drivers, janitors, security guards, and their families. Michael stood beside him, and beside Michael was Clara Chen, a paramedic he'd met volunteering at a neighborhood health clinic. She laughed too loud, wore thrift store jeans, and had spent 20 minutes that morning talking to Richard about foundation repair techniques because she genuinely wanted to understand his work. When she smiled at his son, it reached her eyes. "You did good, Dad," Michael murmured, watching the ceremony. Richard thought about the $5 bill, now framed in his office with a small plaque. "Character is measured at street level." He thought about his late wife, who would have loved Clara's unpolished authenticity. He thought about buildings he'd constructed that would outlive him, standing tall because their foundations were sound. "We build what lasts," Richard said, squeezing his son's shoulder. "In construction and in life, always check the foundation first." Outside the window, San Francisco's skyline stretched toward the clouds, steel and glass monuments to ambition. But Richard Hale, who had helped build half of them, understood the truth. The real measure of what you've built isn't how high it reaches. It's how solid it stands when tested and how many people it shelters when the storms come. That evening, as Richard rode the BART home, a young woman with a delivery bag got on at the next stop. She looked exhausted, her uniform wrinkled, a coffee stain on her sleeve. An older businessman glanced at her, then pointedly moved his briefcase off the seat beside him. Richard caught the woman's eye and smiled. "Long day?" She nodded gratefully as she sat. "The longest, but the rent's due, you know." "I know." And he really did.
The true measure of a person isn't their wealth or their status. It's revealed in how they treat those who have nothing to offer them. Richard Hale's one day in disguise protected his son's future and reminded us all that respect and dignity should never be optional. Just like a building stands not by its height, but by the strength of its foundation, so too does a life, a relationship, and a legacy. Always check the foundation first. What do you think? Have you ever seen someone's true character revealed in an unexpected way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story.